Earlier, Chum spent $4,000 on 3 samurai swords because he thinks he's a samurai expert.
Worth up to $3 or $4 million. Unfortunately, the signature appears to be a forgery.
If you've been watching Pawn Stars for any amount of time, you'll notice that Chumlee is a guy that doesn't exactly stand out as the smartest person in the room. Because he's not. He's made tons of mistakes, and Rick and the crew have had to pay for them. But every once in a while, he makes a deal or action that's worth remembering.
Hey, before we get into the video, be sure to enter our brand new giveaway. We'll be giving away any of these items. It's your choice. To enter the giveaway, leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, turn on notifications, and most importantly, watch the whole video. It's that simple.
7. Samurai swords.
I don't know if you're gonna be okay on this one, dude.
Dude, I'm gonna be fine, Corey. I paid under $5 grand for these.
When it comes to swords, they are an inherent part of the history of the human race. They represent a much simpler time and an era long before the invention of gunpowder. Owning a sword is pretty cool, and they're still made via modern techniques to this day. But owning a true antique of a sword can be rare, and you might not see one in your lifetime. Not to mention, there are people who make modern equivalents, and sometimes pawn them off as their antique counterparts. Which is a scam, and one that shops like the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop need to be aware of. Which is where Chumlee comes in. A customer brought in a set of samurai swords one day, and Chumlee was blown away by them. So much so, in fact, that he actually spent $4,000 roughly on the pair, which is a lot of money for swords that he didn't verify were real, and they had experts to do that. Surely enough, when the Harrisons found out about it, they weren't happy. Even Corey, who has defended Chumlee more times than not, was convinced that they were duds. Rick Harrison was so mad about this, despite Chumlee insisting that they were valuable, that he went to a local expert to get clarification on what was real, what was fake, and what was the cost. And of course, how mad to be at Chumlee. But in the ultimate twist of fate, the joke was on Rick Harrison in this very rare case, as the expert revealed that not only were these real, but they were made by known makers, and one of them was even dated to have been made in the 1400s. And while one of the swords had some fake branding, the rest was real, and was still worth some good money. All told, the expert stated that the swords were worth $13,000. So, even with the $4,000 that was used to buy them, that was $9,000 profit. Not that Rick cared, he was still mad at how Chumlee handled the purchase, but at least he can't say that he cost the store money. 6. The potato.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I wanna
What do you
see
have
what I can
here?
get for this.
I wish I was making this one up, but I promise, it was true. And yeah, it involves Chumlee. A guy named Sean Price came into the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop as a man on a mission. A mission to sell a potato. Seriously, that's what he had. He had a potato. But in Price's mind, it wasn't just a potato. It was a potato that he claimed was actually thrown at and hit Martin Luther King Jr. King was one of the biggest voices of the civil rights movement, activism to this day. So if this had indeed been a potato that came into contact with him, it honestly would be worth something. If you're already seeing the warning signs here, you're a very smart person. Or you're just paying attention. Either way, in regards to this potato, there was no documentation or proof that this was indeed a potato that did what Price claimed it did. Given the unique story behind it, documentation was paramount. And on this occasion, Chumlee honestly knew that. Despite Sean Price asking $100,000 for it, Chumlee bought the potato for $225,000. And Price seemed fine with that. Which should be even more proof that it was a fake, because no rational person who had a genuine article of history like that would have dropped that low in price. You almost have to wonder what happened to that potato. Guess it's something only the universe knows for certain. 5. White swords.
Over 2 years ago, I sent a samurai sword to Japan to get fully restored.
One of the reasons that Chumlee has a bad rap in the shop is that Rick will give him a clear-cut job, and he'll find a way to mess it up. Literally, that's his trademark, and he's done it more times than Rick can count. And Rick can count pretty high. But in one case with a samurai sword, Chumlee actually did good by not listening to Rick, which is something he no doubt floats over his head at times. Rick had bought on his own a 17th century katana, but it wasn't for sale in the shop. Rather, Rick personally sent this sword to Japan for the sole purpose of getting it fully restored and being an item in the shop for people to just look at and not buy. This might seem odd for a pawn shop, but sometimes items are put up just for display and nothing else to lure in customers to see what else they could find. It's a business practice, basically. Anyway, the status of the sword was made very clear to both Chumlee and Corey, who were there when the sword was being returned to Rick. He noted that the sword itself was around $35,000 in terms of worth now and was not to be sold. Seriously, he did not want to sell it. Everything changed though when a man by the name of Dana White entered the gold and silver pawn shop. If you somehow don't recognize that name, he's the owner of the UFC. You know, one of the most popular combat sports on the planet? Anyway, he was looking for a classic sword to buy, and Chumlee didn't hesitate 1 second to offer up Rick's sword. You know, the one that he had told him not an hour or so before to not sell? In partial irony, he didn't get $35,000 for the sword, he only got $30,000. But he got Dana White to purchase another $30,000 worth of other swords, thus increasing the profits made. So overall, he did well. Plus, when Rick asked Dana to come back to talk about the sword he wasn't supposed to buy, Rick got him to buy another sword for $9,000. So all told in the business sense, not listening to Rick in this case got the store about 70 G's in bought items, which is a big feather in Chumlee's cap. But you can bet Rick is still lamenting the loss of that sword. 4. Seeing the fake.
Hey, I got a 61 Willie Mays uniform. I got his jersey with the matching pants underneath.
Okay, this particular one wasn't one that Chumlee made a deal on or earned money on, but it was a very interesting observation that should have been noted when a certain deal was going down. A pair of customers came in while Corey and Chumlee were on watch, and they claimed to have a Willie Mays jersey. Mays is a Hall of Famer in MLB, and one of the best to play the game, so having official memorabilia from him is a big get, no doubt. But when the two were looking at the jersey, it was Chumlee, not Corey, who felt that something was seriously wrong about it. Specifically, he noted that the jersey might have been worn by Mays in theory, but the seller said that it was game-worn. Yet Chumlee noticed that it was far too clean to have been game-worn. He even noted how Mays was known for stealing bases, not to mention that he was an outfielder, so getting in the dirt was almost a requirement back in those days of MLB. All things being equal, it's possible he played a game where he didn't go into the dirt, but then why keep the jersey locked away? What value would it hold to Mays? Not so ironically, Corey didn't listen to Chumlee and spent $31,000 on the jersey, which was a big mistake. Because not only was the jersey not worth that much, it was later found out that Mays had never worn this jersey at all. And the shop lost tens of thousands of dollars on the deal all told in regards to what they were asking for it and how much they got eventually at auction. Should Corey be blamed for not heeding Chumlee's advice? Not really. But this one time, he was very much right, and lots of money was lost because he didn't get heard. 3. Tupac's BMW.
All right, so this is supposed to be the most amazing car on the planet.
It's pretty dang close. I mean, Tupac probably wrote some poems in this thing.
When it comes to cars in the pawn world, it needs to be a specific level of quality, rarity, and value to be worth buying and selling. One day, though, Chumlee just so happened to find a car owned by the legendary and infamous rapper known simply as Tupac Shakur. Tupac was a true legend of the rap game, and alongside Notorious B.I.G., who were actually rivals on different coasts, they helped define rap for years to come, and their passings under very mysterious circumstances are still talked about today. Therefore, anything Tupac owned is high value, in theory anyway. What made this particular BMW special though, despite it not being a high-class BMW, was that this was the literal car that Tupac was in when the drive-by happened that would eventually claim his life. It had been restored a bit, but the owners had proof that this was indeed Tupac's car. And when their local appraiser came in to give value to the car, he noted that it could be worth almost $1 million, which would have been a good deal for the Pawn Stars should a reasonable price be made. Despite some haggling, the deal couldn't be done as the owners wanted much more than Rick was willing to offer. But even Rick noted that he had learned something from Chumlee that day, which, quote, is a pretty rare occasion. So no money was exchanged, but Chumlee did impress Rick with his history knowledge and acknowledging the value of an item. And that can be as rare as any celebrity car. 2. Standing in line.
I've got a piece of original artwork from Marvel Comics, Spider-Man.
Comic books can be tricky in terms of value. Series, edition, authors, art, and more weigh into the value of an item, as well as when they were released and by whom. Chumlee has made some bad deals on comic purchases in the past, but one time got him a gold star in an unexpected manner. A customer came in with an enlarged comic book panel, which was given out for promotional reasons. But the real selling point was that it was signed by 2 comic legends, artist John Romita, whose son is a legend himself in the comics industry and is currently working with DC Comics, and the one and only Stan Lee. You know, the guy who helped make Marvel what it is today and helped make some of the most legendary characters ever? Yeah, that's Stan Lee. Usually, seeing a Stan Lee signature would be enough for anyone to make a deal, even if it's fake. But to his credit, Chumlee didn't do that. He actually did something rather smart. He knew that Stan Lee was in town and actually took the customer to meet him. And when they showed him the panels, Stan Lee went full nostalgia and actually recalled him and John signing the panels, proving that it was real, which also must have been a great moment for Stan because he likely hadn't thought about this memory for some time. Chumlee got this item for $5,000, which is a steal given the prominence of Lee and Romita in the comics world. And whoever has that panel page now likely has an even greater item in terms of price because of the recent passing of Stan Lee. So, a little bit of knowledge and some good timing, and Chumlee made a great deal. 1. The Chumlee brand.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Is that what I think it is?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Fans love Chumlee, even if the Harrisons don't. And after the show got famous, and it was clear that Chumlee was one of the bigger stars of the show, when he realized this and noticed the potential of this, he decided to double down on himself. He made a novelty store, one that sold items featuring himself and the other Pawn Stars members and various other things that get bought by people who came to Las Vegas. You'd think that something like this wouldn't work for a whole host of reasons, including the thing being run by Chumlee. However, the stuff was so successful that he was making a ton of cash, and he even wore some of the merchandise on Pawn Stars. So, for all of his fruits, he was actually rather smart in seeing the potential for branding himself. In fact, he was the only one of the Pawn Stars to do this for a long time. But the smarts eventually ran out in regards to the novelty shop. Chumlee actually got tired of being the guy running it, so he sold partial ownership to Rick Harrison. And not only did Rick make the deal, he actually ran the shop better than Chumlee. We probably should rag on Chumlee for this, but honestly, what's the point? He did make a great deal by doing the store, and he's done other ventures like this since. So, while not fully bright or a great businessman in the long term, there's no denying what he did.